Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ramblers of the Round Table podcast. I'm Scott Nichols, and my wife Jackie Nichols is here, and she's going to do a little disclaimer for everybody before we get started.
Yeah, hi, Ramblers. So, by listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that the host, guests, and contributors are not responsible for any actions or decisions you take based on the information presented. I do want to say a special hello to Ellis and sending her a happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Alice.
Passing it to you, Brett.
Passing it over to you, Brady boy.
Well, thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Scott. And of course, a massive, massive happy birthday to the beautiful Ellis. So I hope you're having a beautiful and blessed day, my sweet friend. And I look forward to meeting you next time we bump paths. Well, everyone, we're going to discuss a few, three actually, UFO sightings and one actually abduction. So, Scotty, do you want to introduce what we're talking about? And hey, everyone, let me just say hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the live and the replay. So much love for that. Giving you all beautiful blessings. And Scotty, introduce what we're up to, man.
Yeah, we're going to be having some fun today, everybody. We're just going to be rambling. The three of us just going to throw some fun cases at you today. Some cases we find fascinating, and we just thought we'd ramble about it today because that's what we do best. We're ramblers. And we thought that we're going to go over the case of Pascagoula. One of Jackie and I's favorites. Of course, I mean, there's quite a few of them out there now. So, but Pascagoula in 1973, two guys, hardworking men, at the end of the day, decide that they want to go fishing. You have Calvin and Charles, and Charles is I believe he was, how old was Charles? 43. And Calvin was 19 at the time. And it's just like two guys want to go fishing at the end of the day, just want to relieve some stress, catch some fish for your family back then, 1973. Not much else to do. You're not going to get online or anything like that, go play some video games or watch some movies or anything like that. You're going to be wanting to, relax, drink a beer and fish with your buddy. So they decided to meet up and go fishing. Well, Calvin says that Charlie had a great fishing spot, and they drive out to it, and they have to walk in from there. Well, there's a no trespassing sign, and Calvin was a little worried. He's like, "Hey, I've seen a sign that says no trespassing. You sure we're allowed to go fishing there?" And he goes, "Yeah, bro. I go here all the time. This is the best fishing spot. We're gonna go here." So Calvin's like, "All right, we're gonna go." And so they're fishing for a little bit there, and next thing you know, they see this light, like a big blue light, like he said it was like a spotlight, from like a patrol car. And so he thought right away, oh man, we're busted. I saw that no trespassing sign. Oh man, we're in trouble. So they get up and they turn around and they see all of a sudden there's a craft there, and they see this bright light. He said at first it was just like blinding. As the door opened, it was just blinding them. And they see three creatures coming at them, and two of them were these big ones, and they had these claws, is how he described these creatures coming at them. And he said that two of them grabbed a hold of Charlie, and then the next one grabbed a hold of him. And he said when it grabbed a hold of him, he said that he was scared. He was so frightened. But when he was grabbed by this and it had like a pincher arm, it grabbed a hold of him, and he felt a puncture into his arm. And then next thing you know, he's feeling like just real passive, real relaxed. And next thing you know, he's being pulled away, and they'll be pulled up into this craft. Now, the crazy part starts happening that Calvin talks about. And next thing you know, he's on this table. There's an alien being. I believe that he said that it was blue, and it was taller, had long, dangly fingers. And he said that he wasn't sure if it was male or female, but he felt maybe that it was a female. But next thing you know, he can't move, and he's just so scared. And next thing you know, the creature is putting its finger down his throat, and he's starting to, panic a little bit. Next thing you know, it's going up his nasal cavity. And he said that he was prone to nosebleeds already. Next thing you know, he's having a nosebleed. Now he's really starting to panic, and he hears telepathically the being that's putting his finger down his throat that we're not going to hurt you. And so he's thinking, and it did calm him down some. And at that time, he said the alien had pulled the finger out of his mouth and made a noise, like I forget what kind of noise that it made, but it made a noise. And next thing you know, the big one came over to him, and he heard like a noise, like an air noise. And they said that there was air needles that they used to use in the military and so forth back then, and that's what it kind of sounded like. And next thing you know, he's feeling docile, all dormant again. Next thing you know, they're being put back down, and to the exact same spot where they were fishing. So I figured maybe you want to jump in and talk about, your feelings on, how would you react, when they got back. He said he didn't want to talk about it at all. Charlie had asked him, we got to tell somebody. And Calvin was like, I don't want to tell anybody, bro. I'm about to get married. I just got a new job. They'll think I'm crazy. No, I can't have my wife's family and my family thinking I'm crazy. I just got a job. No, man, we're not telling anybody. And Charlie wanted to tell anybody. How would you feel? Would you want to tell anybody, bro, about if you and I went fishing and next thing you know, we're abducted?
Well, I think as encounters go, this one was quite a terrifying one for the two guys involved. And from my research, there was a craft scene they were fishing. You told the first story. A great light comes, and then they see a silver craft, and it just hovers above the water, and the water underneath splashing up. A light comes on. It seems to open up on the door, and 2 or 3 beings come out. The first ones they saw were big. They had grey skin, very wrinkly skin, very monster-like, actually. And like you said, Scotty, they had like pinchers or a claw, you could say. And they went up, and they seemed to be able to pull them with some kind of force, with maybe psionics or something. They felt like they were being pulled, like someone had tied a rope and pulled them in, and they got pulled into the craft. And it was quite a terrifying experience for them both. Because you got to remember, this is what, 72, 73. You can imagine that this happening now would be a terrifying experience. But it does seem that they were doing some kind of medical experiments on them, whatever this was, and they seem to be separated. So they both have a very similar experience, but I can't remember which one. But one of them was in one room with the 2 ripple beings, which almost moved robotic-like, felt very motionless, very, very actually scary looking. I imagine it was terrifying. They were paralyzed. They were screaming. No sound would come out. They were paralyzed, and they seemed to do experiments. The other guy was in the other room, and he had what he perceived and had said was a female being. From what I saw, it was grey colored skin, a female grey, which, is a new one on me, a hybrid maybe, with almond eyes. And she was saying to him, I'm telepathically, not speaking through frequency and sound, but through telepathy, he heard, we're not here to hurt you. But he was still panicked. And like you said, this alien is sticking things down its throat, it's sticking things up its nose. And also they both recorded that there's some kind of robotic android or round ball was floating over them with spraying things, scanning them, all kinds of things. And I mean, this particular experience for me personally, I would say it doesn't sound like a fun one, It certainly doesn't sound fun. It sounds very cold. I mean, I wonder, what is it? It's not beings we hear about in the mainstream, in our mainstream, shall I say, in the pop culture of disclosure. It's not one I've heard of. They move very robotically, and what were they doing? Was it just simply they come across these people fishing, and like we do, we go to Antarctica, when in a sense we abduct the penguins, do tests on them, and is it a similar thing, or could this be something that Dr. Greer speaks about, of course, where he spoke about this, which they've done terrible tests on the civilians of people using the back engineered technology, creating like androids to create fear in the project. Who knows? Well, I would certainly say this is tangible, because afterwards you can say these guys weren't into this kind of thing. This was back in the 70s. One of them clearly did not want, his life was moving on. He's getting married. You don't want to be known as the nut who got, probed by an alien, do you? But the other guy was like, we really should report this in case something is incoming. So they did go to the sheriff, and they did give a statement. And of course, it was held upon, they're drunk and they're not sure. But they actually left them in the room together, and they left the recording going. And by this recording, I don't think these people are acting. They were truly and utterly confused, terrified, So I would say this event clearly happened. I mean, I'm always open for contact, but contact like that, and they're going to start sticking stuff down my throat and paralyze me. I'm not really in for that. But if me and you were sat there fishing with a couple of beers, Scotty, and we were seeing some sightings and crafts, and a couple of friendly ETs come and join us for a beer, more than welcome.
Yeah, nowadays it'd be much different, having that kind of an experience. I think I would have asked more questions. I definitely would have tried to, and I think that's what Calvin was the one that had the finger down his throat. And then Charles was the older guy that was separated, and he saw the wrinkly, skin. He was stuck with those ones. And but Calvin's story, he just seems like a good old boy, like somebody, like your dad or something telling you a story. And he doesn't seem like somebody that would just be like you said too, bro. They were put in separate, they're investigated in 2 separate rooms, and they have the same story. And the next thing you know, they put them in a room with a secret tape underneath the table and recorded them. And they didn't go in saying, man, that was a good story, bro. Yeah, I think we got him. Yeah, I think we got him hook, line, and sinker. And why would 2 old boys, well, one was young, but country boys, why would they go on wanting to talk about aliens? And Calvin said he didn't even know anything. He said if you would have told him UFO, he thought you were talking about a reporter or something. A UFO, oh, is that a reporter? No, it's a UFO in the sky, and an unidentified flying object. He would have been like, yeah, I don't know what that is. What do you mean? So, and then to hear his story now, he definitely just wants to get his story out. He doesn't want to just left to the wind and nobody knows about it. So yeah, I find that case, and that these guys, I think that they're credible. I mean, to always doubt people too. And I mean, Calvin also says that he took lie detector tests and passed them, and he has proof of that. So he has proof of his lie detector tests that he passed and stuff, that he wasn't lying about his story. So there goes to a little bit, a little bit more credibility to the story, because he did pass lie detector tests, and he didn't even want. I mean, Calvin, if you listen to his story, he's cool, and he didn't even want his story to even be talked about, because he knew what it would bring, all this attention and so forth, and it did right away. They got at their job, there was like reporters and everything at their job site when they went back, and they got let go right away. And he's such a cool dude that he's like, I only worked there 1 day. And they said that they'd pay me, my wage for the week, but I felt bad for taking it because I only worked 1 day. But they had to let us go because, there's too much drama going on at the workplace now. That you got reporters trying to talk to them and everything. Fascinating story. And yeah, was it, we saw that there was witnesses and stuff too. Did you hear about them having witnesses also seeing the lights in the sky?
Yeah, I heard there were some witnesses that witnessed something into the sky. So for sure, and I would say this something surely happened to these guys. You got to go back and think about this. We're talking, it's a different time now, and you got to think 72. These guys didn't need this. They didn't want this. They were clearly had some kind of trauma from this event, terrified. It's reality shattering, actually, when you're in the presence of another being or another species. When you have no context or understanding to this, and you've been taught the mainstream understanding of life, and it's just Earth, nothing else. It's reality shattering, and they had nothing to gain from this at the time. If anything, it caused them problems, problems in their marriages, problems with their jobs, as you just said. So I would say something certainly happened to them. Now, what these beings are, that's the next question. I mean, what were these beings? We've all heard the several different species with grey skin, some androids with grey skin, some biological, and some are a mix between biological and artificial. But I've never heard of a description of beings like these wrinkly greys. These are something new, even new to. Well, from this case, I've never had another case of them. So it does make me wonder what they are. They could be some low frequency being that's very similar to us in a sense of consciousness, but they've got better technology. And they just saw it as a science experiment. They wanted to come to Earth, see what the human's about, check out the DNA. Who knows? Of course, the other options, like I said, which Stephen Greer does speak about, that they did do like false abductions to create fear into the consciousness. prepping for a false flag at some point, you know. So that is also a potential. But to me, it feels like these guys really experienced something quite traumatic, and I think it's a good thing they share their story and talk about this, you know. And it's a time now where we can certainly talk about this stuff openly, you know, a lot more openly than then. So I take my hat off to them for admitting that, because that must have been hard, you know. Even now, some people experience that now, they'd find it very hard to speak about that. But I think they truly felt there was some fear that this could be extraterrestrials or some kind of Russian thing or something, you know, that other people could be affected by this. So therefore they did talk up, and it did cost them something at that time, you know. So yeah, so that's about it.
I want to add to that. Yeah, they both have since then they both have passed on. So but they did, luckily they both wrote books. So it's Charles Hickson wrote a book of UFO contact at Pascagoula in 1983. And then Calvin Parker also wrote a book titled Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story, in what was it, 2018. So they do have books, so their story was left behind. And I mean, you can also watch them on podcasts and so forth like that. But yeah, Jackie and I were also wondering, you know, did he have something, because they didn't seem to work on Charles, but they worked on Calvin. Did Calvin maybe have a tumor? He said that he was prone to nosebleeds and stuff. Were they there to help him? Because they did tell him, we're not here to hurt you. Maybe they were there to help him. Maybe he's part of their family, you know. Maybe in one of his past lives or something, that's where he was. He was with them. And that's how they knew where to find him, because they seemed to know right where he was. Like you said, I mean, two guys in the middle of fishing. I mean, we'd be ants if you're from, you know, outer space. You ain't even going to be able to see us to be able to find them. So maybe he had a tracking device. Maybe they, you know, we were wondering about that too. You know, was it good intentions, or did they plant an implant up into him? So very fascinating case. So, and then we wanted to talk about
Stephen had a comment in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to say Stephen had a comment in the chat. So
I don't know if you guys read it, but he says, some years ago, a work colleague of mine told me that his cousin had experienced a close encounter of the third kind when she was at school in Zimbabwe in 1994.
Oh, wow.
A spacecraft landed behind her school.
Yeah.
And 3 alien creatures came out. They were not hostile and took soil samples. It was an incredible story, but was hushed up by the U.S. military. Many years later, his cousin did a podcast with Howard Hughes on Unexplained Podcast. Are you guys familiar with that case at all?
Yeah. Brett, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, from what I understand, that was the Greys. The Greys went there to Zimbabwe to this school, and they were taking some kind of samples, and they interacted with the children, and it went on for some time. And again, there was a huge amount of witnesses, and a lot of these kids now obviously have grown up and they still remember it. And then the kids all draw pictures, and it's your typical Greys, you know, it's the typical Greys. And from what I understand, that the Greys were doing it for a way to activate the consciousness, and from their perspective, they thought if they went there and done this and they were seeing it, would activate the consciousness. I expect that probably would have been breaking some rules on Earth, that you're not really meant to do that. But yeah, I have heard of that case, and actually that's one I think we should do at some point, actually. We should talk about that in more detail, you know, because there's a lot of tangible evidence to that case. And I think it was a silver seamless craft, oval shaped craft, Greys, you know, it seemed to be the Greys, the biological Greys that merged with fiber bodies and AI, and gave up their biological consciousness, sense of consciousness, transferred it into a field, and then they could download into these bodies. You know, they can print these bodies, basically print fiber body that's merged with AI, and then they project their consciousness into this. And they went down to these, and they thought, from their perspective, from what I understand, they thought going there and people seeing them would activate something in the consciousness and the collective consciousness, maybe. Though they, at that point, maybe didn't understand how easily and good the things can be covered up on Earth. But yeah, very interesting case, you know. And I liked what you were saying as well, Scotty, about they may have been helping, you know. But there's things that I question on that. One would be, why go to the two of them? Why go when they're fishing, and why let them remember and put them through the traumatic of that? So, you know, not all species, we're emotional beings. Humans are hyper emotional, which is one of our superpowers. So not all species would have emotion. Some may have very little, and some may even have zero emotion. So it could be that they were interested in the emotional state to see what happens biologically, physically, frequentially happens when they do this. But I mean, it is a possibility that he could be a hybrid. Many hybrids wouldn't know. And then there was something wrong with him, and they wanted more data or for him to have gained more experience on the Earth experience. And they may have helped him. But it does seem a cold way to do it. I mean, you could do it. They could do it where they couldn't remember a thing, you know, to do it like this, and they get sucked into a craft and they're paralyzed and they're screaming and they're shoving things in their throat and God knows where, probably in all the orifices. You know, it doesn't sound like a fun day at the office to me. But then again, you know, that's a human perspective. From their perspective, they might look at us lesser consciousness the same way when we go and do it to animals. You know, they might have a similar way of looking at it like that. So I just wanted to add that. But yeah, that's an interesting case, Steve. And then I think we will at some point discuss that when we do another one about some sightings and abductions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephen. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for joining us too. And Rue Riders is with us too. Hey, thanks guys for joining us. And yeah, I mean, I just couldn't imagine, you know, something putting their finger down my throat and then up into your brain and stuff and digging around, whether it's, you know, they're helping you or not. But, you know, humans are very emotional beings. I mean, your first reaction is normally fear. And that's what he was, you know, putting off too, was fear. And like you said, not everything out there is going to have the same emotions as us. Maybe it was like, and that's why they let him remember and stuff. Cause it's like, what's wrong with you? You know, we just fixed you. What the hell's wrong with you? Why are you freaking out? You know, why are you having so many emotions, human? And you know, don't you remember us? We're here just to help you. And cause that's what it said to him, you know, don't worry. So, but yeah, the other
technically, they said we're not here to hurt you.
Yeah.
But then again, of course, another thing we've got to think about here is they might have a completely different agenda and not worry about, you know, they might not have been helping. It might have been for their own data, their own research, for their own agenda, and they didn't care less if they remembered or not. You know, and when you're not so emotional and empathic like that, why would it bother you? You know, what difference does it make? You've gathered the data you need. But I would say both are potential, and of course we're rambling, and we don't know the answers to this, but we're just putting out some different perspectives, positive and negative. You know, you got to look at it from all angles, or as many as you can, anyway.
Yeah, and then you know you'll have to read Calvin's book because he does talk about other experiences that happened to him. He had another experience too, and I believe it was like 1998. But yeah. That's more to that story too. It'd be fun to check out. So that's why we wanted to throw that story to you guys. If you haven't heard about it, go check out the Pascagoula case. You know, very fascinating. You can hear it from Calvin. You know, check out the podcast and so forth too. He talks all over podcasts. So yeah, fascinating case. Figured the next case that we wanted to jump into was the Rendlesham Forest over by Brett over there. So yeah, I thought maybe you want to talk about the Rendlesham Forest a little bit. Start us off on that one, brother.
Yeah, I'll start us off on that one. I mean, I think it was in the 80s, so I wasn't even born when this happened. It was in Suffolk, and there's Woodbridge and Eastgate were two military bases very close in between this forest. It turns out it was a secret nuclear base underneath there, so we got this. That we know this now. And the Americans were based there. And it was Christmas, actually, December 26th, the first night the sighting was coming. There were sightings in the sky, flashing blue, red lights, clicking on. And there was sighting that they thought there would have been a plane crash into Rendlesham Forest. So they sent some people to have a look. And it turns out it wasn't a plane that they'd seen before, that's for sure. But this one's a very complicated case. I remember looking at this. I've been interested in stuff like this for a long time, and I haven't really thought about this case till we were going to do a podcast on it. So I've gone back into it. My perspective's kind of changed on it now. You know, what did they had? They had it was Charles Holt, Colonel Holt. He sent Jim Pennison. Was it Scotty? What was his name?
Yeah, Penniston,
and John Bars. So they went in to investigate this. They went into the forest. They see a huge bright light. There
was another guy with them too. There was another guy with
Edward. Someone was it?
Yeah, I always forget his last name. And me and Jack were laughing about that. Yeah, I was going to say we were laughing about that.
There was two men. One stayed by the vehicle, and two went in wandering into the forest. And it was Barnes who had the quite incredible experience. So a flash of light went off. They believed it to be some kind of explosion, like the craft or airplane that explodes. So they ducked down for cover. Blinding flash of light. So they're down, and 10, 15 seconds go past. The light's still there, but there's nothing. So they go up and see this. And from this part, it was Barnes. He saw suddenly a triangle-shaped craft with hieroglyphics like the Egyptians, but not Egyptian on it, with all these lights, flashing lights, something that looked like two wings and a tail fin on it, which is bizarre to me. So my question is, honestly, this sounds back engineered to me, like they were playing some kind of game. Think of this as the 80s. The films that are out on there, anything to do with extraterrestrial, they have flashing green and blue lights, and I don't know. But anyway, his story as he went up to it, it's humming. There's electricity into the air, like we quite often have with the anti-gravitic technology. Many of the crafts are explained like this, that it's some kind of electronic field that's in there. And as he moved forward, it was like walking. He described it in his notes as like plugging through soup, which I thought was a very interesting description to come up with. So he was wading through that. As he came up to the craft, it gave off another. No, he went up to the craft, and then it had white lights, blue lights around it, and his hieroglyphs. The guy, from his recollection, touched it. And he touched the hieroglyphs. As he touched that, it gave off another white flashlight, bright white light, and he saw ones and zeros, which we know is binary code. Which again, I'm not sure about that. And the other guy, he had a kind of similar experience but different. He saw a flash of white light, and then he said that's all he remembered. But the weird thing is, in his notes, in his later notes, he then described the craft exactly. And this craft was triangle. I think it was 9 foot tall by 9 foot wide. So not if you think about it, that's not a huge craft. Almost sounds drone-like to me. Had these lights on, had 3 legs that went down into the ground. It sounds something very much out of a science fiction movie. But around this time, there was lots of other sightings. So there was red lights, orbs, starlights moving in the sky. There was red lights that were turning from one red light into one. So there was a lot of activity. These things were picked up on the radar. From the army radar and the civilian radar was picked up that they thought it was anomalies. It was moving so quick. It was seen to fly in, and then it disappeared at Rendlesham Forest. But it landed, and there was tangible evidence that there was something. The trees were broken. There was a scorch mark where it landed, and even where the 3 feet of the tripod were with its legs, there was indents on this. And there was some radiation found, which again rings bells to me of back engineered. I can't see ETs using nuclear, to be honest. That sounds more human, but when I first heard of this one, I really believed it was like they call it the UK's Roswell. I don't think it's nothing like Roswell. The thing landed, but it sounds very human to me. But it went over 2 nights. A lot of people witnessed it, civilians. On the second night, it was a different sighting. The triangle craft wasn't seen. It was red orbs again, and again in the forest there was activity. They sent some people down. I think Barnes went again. He went exactly to the place he went before. And there was a red, they described it in their notes as a red eye with a black ring around it, which was giving off sparks of light. It was some kind of orb. And this sounds very different to the triangle craft they saw on the first night. And it was darting erratically around the forest, and then it shot off within I think his words were in speeds that was impossible for our known technology, There's a lot to it, Scott. I might have missed a few things there. I don't know if you want to jump on any of that I've missed, because there's a lot to this case.
Yeah, this is another awesome, fascinating case because we've even heard of the debunk side, but I won't get to the debunk side yet. But the main thing is, I feel like they did see something. They definitely saw something. It's definitely was reported. And I think it was like over a week. We keep on hearing like different things about that as well. So, you're going to have to listen to the story for yourself, but check out the Rendlesham Forest because it's awesome. Awesome. Another, case of military men seeing this craft like Brett was describing. You had this triangle craft that lands out in the forest and has these neat little triangular legs that go down, and they find evidence of that. And then so you have Burroughs and Peniston that and like Brett said, Peniston touched it, and he's supposedly had the binary code come to him, but that didn't come out till later on that he actually had that binary code. But Burroughs describes it very well. And then, so they had reported it. And then you have Colonel Hall that has to, you know, go out and he wants to try to investigate it and just put this under wraps. You know, this isn't happening. You guys just saw some weird light. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. So his group goes out on the third night and they go out there. And that's when they have Colonel Hall actually had a recorder, and he's recording saying, you know, what is that? And, you know, he's actually seeing the stuff in the sky. He talks about a beam of light that comes down from the craft to the ground. So like Brett's talking about, you know, it's in between two military bases here. And next thing you know, here's this craft. Now we're back in, you know, it's, you know, what, 1980?
Yeah.
And so we're, you know, they're still worried about the Russians and stuff and who has nukes. So you might want to test your vehicle over your own military men and see if you can fly this vehicle over it and check out nukes, maybe be able to disarm them with this vehicle. And so let's go test it on, you know, the Americans. Well, let's not do it in America. Let's go do it over you know, in this forest, you know, that, you know, this magical place. Let's go do it over there instead. And they do it. And so if they tested that vehicle there and they, you know, have reports back of it, well, it didn't work so well. It was seen. So you're not going to want to fly that and test that. Okay, you fly it over to Russia and you're testing over, you know, their nuke sites. Say, you know, you're busted. Now they know that kind of, you know, technology is out there and could possibly be ours. So the Rendlesham Forest, you know, case, and then they start talking about it later on. So you have Pendleton that had came out and like Brett was talking about. So he supposedly had went on an interview. And then 10 years later is when the binary code came out. It didn't come out right away, supposedly. It was later on. You can check it out on, we saw that on the Y-Files. He had debunked it. Y-Files is good about debunking stuff. So yeah, I like watching him. He's funny. He'll get you all in the mix of watching the show, thinking that this case is true, and then he debunks most of it. So, but he did say that Pendleton came out 10 years later, that inside his notebook, oh, he forgot that in the back of the notebook was all these ones and zeros. Well, and one thing that they said that it came out that it actually was a message, and it said eyes for your eyes, and I forget what else it said, but then the debunk part said that it was just gibberish. So, you know, you have another case of, is this a true story? Did they really see something? And then, you know, 30 years later, Colonel Hall came out and gave a sworn statement that he said that they were UFOs, and he signed it. He said that, you know, I'm done hiding it. You know, it's been 30 years. I'm going to die soon. And most men that are passing, they want their story told and left behind. And just knowing about, you know, the military being able to make a craft. I mean, do you think we have that technology?
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I'll back up a little bit. What I would say, Scott, is if they were testing that to be able to get to, say, Russia's nuclear place without being detected, you wouldn't stick 1,000 blue fucking lights on it. Do you know what I mean? And fire laser beams out of it. So my feeling is it's probably more of a test on the consciousness of the people. They wanted that thing to be seen for some reason. You know, and they wanted people to investigate. Though I wouldn't say it was probably the army or the army bases doing this. It's probably some kind of black project or deep secret project or breakaway projects that their army bases would have had no idea about it. But if you want to do it stealth and test out the stealthiness of something, you don't stick blue flashing lights on it and start firing laser beams at it everywhere, you know. So it seems to me, you know, when I first heard this story years ago, I really, you know, my feeling then was I believe it happened. They witnessed something, and you would think about if someone saw this thing now, you know, even though to me it would be like, oh, that's fucking man-made. But if you think about it, if you saw this thing floating with beams coming out and moving at speed, you're going to think it's aliens or it's not from this earth, you know. And but it seems like they wanted it to be seen, you know. But at the same time, there was orbs and these other things being seen at the exact same time, which I don't believe are the same craft. From they don't read the same, they don't seem to move the same. I mean, and this red eye that's floating around the forest, sparks coming. What was that? That sounds like an interferential being to me. you know. So maybe some of this was some other beings or ET, and some of it was back engineered. But when you listen to the design of it, 9 foot by 9 foot triangle thing with little wings, with a fin on the back, with lights put all around it, it just, and then you put it to the films at the 80s like ET now, and these crafts come and pick them up. This is what they pictures them as, you know. It's, I just don't think, it just doesn't feel extraterrestrial to me. It feels like it was project. But then when you do hear about the other lights, like I'm saying, these other orbs, and some of them were witnessed and seen for hours. Local farmers, animals were going off crazy, and then there was silence, and these lights were flying around and around. So it is possible that they weren't just witnessing one single triangle craft, that there were several of them. And one of them was a red light, and then it turned into 5 white lights and was flying all over the place. I mean, that sounds like that could be something different. I mean, yeah, so it's a tricky one, but on researching this one again, or going back into it on a fresh mind, I haven't really thought about this in probably over a couple of decades, is that this actually, now knowing what I know, this sounds very much back engineered. And then of course they found radiation. They found small amounts of radiation and stuff like this, which again, I can't really see the ETs would be, they'd be using anti-graphic or 0-point energy, not nuclear, you know.
And didn't you see a craft like that?
I've seen a TR-3B, which is different than this. It was far huger than 9 foot. It was about a football field. I see it twice in my hometown. It flew over one time. I was with my friend playing soccer, and looked up, and my friend goes, "What's that?" And I'm like, "It's an airplane." He goes, "It's way too big." The thing was covering houses and houses and houses. And again, it was the electricity in the air, the humming. You could feel the energy. You know, it had 3 dots on each side, in each corner of the triangle, and in the middle had an orange light. And I saw that again with my younger brother over our house twice. And for many years, I was convinced that I had some kind of extraterrestrial experience, and that was an extraterrestrial. But now, as I go up, I would call that a TR-3B, which, you know, that's one of the ones they had built out in the 70s. Many of the space programs it was sold, from what I understand, NATO's space program had these. They were all over the place, which probably what I would have seen would have been NATO's one. And yeah, and that's our technology, which sounds crazy, but I mean, is it? I mean, there's a group of people that hold a lot of power, wealth in this world that aren't loving beings, psychopathic in a sense, that are power hungry and mad, that by this technology and stuff being released, or nobody had this, wipes out every part of power they have and control over humanity, you know, because it's the energy it runs on. It's not running on nuclear. You ain't filling out with diesel or gas, my friends. You know, it's not working on solar power. You know, it's 0.3 energy that could power the world with little effect on the earth, and at very, very next to nothing cost, which would free us, you know. So yeah, I mean, we've got to keep an open mind with this, you know, and that's my vibe on that. This Rendlesham one now, I'm looking at it again, that sounds back engineered, though it might not be. It might be in somewhere, some ET car, but why they'd have flashing lights on it and fins and all this, I can't work that out. But again, there were several different sightings, so maybe the ETs were like, you know, when they're testing it, so they brought out and showed themselves as well to say, this is what we really are, this is what we can do. You know, we can be a red light and turn into 5 lights and spin around. We can zoom in, zoom out, maybe. And again, we know that ETs quite often are known around nuclear facilities, especially top secret ones. I imagine for good reason, because, you know, they don't want the consciousness of Earth playing with matches.
Yeah, and that was going into the next question on that. So, you know, besides if it was military back engineered, now let's go into the thought of, like, there's another guy that came forward. His name was Larry Warren, and he also said that he was one of the military police that was out there that night. And he said that he was there during the time that these incidents happened. And he said that he was the one that was also called on that 3rd night to go with Colonel Hall out into the forest and kind of debunk this incident that Peniston, Burroughs, and I forget the 3rd guy's name, but I know the 3rd night they went out to pretty much debunk it or get evidence of what had happened and see if a craft really landed. Well, they get out to the forest, and like Brett said, you know, there's some burn marks on the tree. There's 3 marked indentations on the ground, like some kind of craft did, like a tripod landing was in the ground, and there were slight amounts of radiation. And then next thing you know, there's the recording of them talking about Hall's recording, talking about seeing these lights and stuff and a beam. And so that goes on to, so now that we talked about maybe if it was back engineered, but what if it was really aliens? So what if they were really here to check out stuff? And what if the craft, the TRB-3 that you saw, was aliens? Because did you ever have any feelings, or did it affect you later on in life? You know, that you feel that TRB-3 craft now. Do you feel like maybe you had a connection with the TRB-3? Could it have been aliens, or do you think for sure?
What I can say is under hypnosis, I know that that was human, and I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but that was our technology. And what I would say, if that was extraterrestrial technology in the 80s at Rendlesham Forest, and I'm just talking about the triangle craft, then it might pay them off. They can make some deals with the black projects, and they might be able to upgrade their technology, you know, because it just seems, I don't know, but it could be. But I'm not saying that the whole incident wasn't ET involved, the orbs, and that certainly sounds more probable to me. I mean, there's alarm bells all over the place. You know, it's triangle. It's got tripods that come down at the lads. It's got laser beams on it. You know, flashing blue, red, green lights. You know, it just sounds. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's one of the fascinating things too. Is that, you know, I mean, you had Burroughs and Penniston that came out, right, and they've been talking about it for a while. Well, it's not till, you know, much later. I mean, I don't know when Larry Warren finally came out, but we just saw that he just, you know, not too long ago had came out with this story. So that, I mean, anybody, I could have been on the base, you know, and then, you know, I see these guys and they're making books and they're making money and they're doing stuff. I might want to jump in and be like, yeah, I was there that night too. But they never had said that there's any evidence, but the military would want to cover that up too and be like, yeah, we don't know that guy. So either way, it goes back and forth. Could it be aliens? Could it be reverse engineered? And then, you know, could this person have been there, or is he lying? I mean, so many of these cases go back and forth. And that's what was fun about the first case, you know, when we're talking about the Pascagoula incident. You actually had two guys that talked about something, and they actually passed lie detector tests. And now we're going into...
What I wonder about it, Scott, is that the first night, there were certainly some things in the sky which were interesting. And then you've got this triangle thing that's firing off laser beams and flashing blue lights around the place. But then, like you said, this guy, he's come out late. There's no proof to that. So it's just a witness statement with only the fact that he worked on the base, but there's no other documents to back that up. But then again, like I said, this is what I'm getting to here. But when they went into doing the statements and talking about people about this, the first night was the one they wanted to talk about and they wanted to interview. And the other nights they almost wanted to ignore. And because, say, this guy on the second night says he has this encounter, was it with a triangle craft? Is that what he said, or was it a lie?
He said that there was a triangular craft.
So that was on the third night.
Oh, on the third night, no, they just saw the lights.
That's what I mean. So
yep,
there seems to be the first night's incident, the one in the forest, I would say is back engineered. But then there seems to be a buttload of other activity following nights where no one else describes the triangle craft. It's all lights and orbs, and they're transforming, they're zooming, they're like stars moving erratically and around. So I would say that there's a high probability here that part of that was ours, military or black projects, whatever you want to call that. And maybe the extraterrestrials were there. Maybe they knew that they were going to fire, they were going to do this to the humans for some reason, and they were showing themselves. But if this guy had an encounter after the third night, this could be an encounter with something else, because the triangle craft sounds like a material craft. There's a triangle that's flying around that's got flashing lights on it. But these other ones seem to be orbs, which you see a lot, and they turn and they break in and they make these beautiful patterns, and they bleed in and they bleed out. That doesn't sound like the same thing to me, though it's around the same area, you know. So my vibe is there could have been some kind of extraterrestrial presence, but also potentially that could have been back engineered.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about too, is that you know, that back engineered craft, the aliens might have been coming down and there's two scenarios there too, you know. they could have been coming down and been like, what are you guys doing? Why are you using radiation on, you know, and making these crafts? What are you guys doing? You have all these beautiful balls of light coming around, and they're coming down to like, what are you doing? Why are you flying this craft? And and at the same time, they're, you know, the US or whoever created the craft wants to see if it works. You know, they put the hieroglyphs on it so it can be recognized. Oh, will our guys notice this? But then the aliens might have, you know, not found that to be, you know, formidable. They might have been like, why are you flying this radiation, you know, craft all around in the sky? Might have came down and checked them out, because you have Larry Warren, like Brett was saying, there might have been several, you know, that craft that was reverse engineered, but then you might have had other crafts that were out there, because Larry Warren said that he had actually seen a creature. So he had actually seen an alien. And his story, I mean, you watch him, I mean, these people seem like, you know, credible witnesses, but, you know, you never know. So it's fun to always dive down these rabbit holes and, you know, start these, you know, decipher them for yourself. Because it's like, man, you find so much evidence leaning one way, you find evidence leaning the other way, and then you just got to have fun with the cases. That's what we're trying to do today. Have a, you know, make you guys think and get your minds flowing on these cases. It's just, you know, why would so many people lie about seeing these things? And, you know, I don't know. Do you think that they
I agree, and I think there is tangible evidence. Like you say, we've got a huge amount of witnesses, documented tapes, statements. We've got radar. We've got, like you said, the tripods in the ground. We've got broken trees burnt and radiation, and sightings all over Suffolk at that night of lights in the sky, not just military, but civilian. So I would say, again, there's something happened here. And I think there's more to this story than meets the eye. I mean, like I said, when I first heard it, I thought extraterrestrial all the way with it. But now 20 years later, with my experiences, my research, now I look at that, part of that sounds re-engineered, but then the other part of it doesn't quite make sense. And I'm not sure about this binary code thing. I mean, when I first heard that, I remember hearing that, and I thought something just doesn't make sense with that, you know, like it's like that film The Knowing, you know, it just sounds like The Knowing when they're writing down the binary codes. You know, that he could have made that up. There's no proof to that. And I forgot it was in my. I forgot I got a message of binary code written in my thing for 10 years. I mean, come on, you know, it's hard to take that too serious. But I would say there was definitely huge activity over several nights, like you say, at least 3 nights, maybe a week, Scotty. And they seem to have covered up. They seem to be, in a way, certain group wanted real emphasis on this triangle craft. But these orbs and these eyes and stuff like that, and that they didn't really want too much spoken about, which again raises some alarm bells to me, you know.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's just like the government to cover up things too. I mean, we've heard all the cases where they've covered things up. I mean, I mean, there's too many to talk about all in one show of all the cases that they covered up, and that's what we're going to get into next. So I thought it'd be fun to dive into the next one. But before I do, there was Gary Hesseltine is actually investigating the case of the Rendlesham Forest even more. And he was a military police officer. And then I think he was a police investigator. I think he said for like 19 years. And he's also, that's what I do. I investigate. I'm an investigator. So it's going to be cool to see what he comes up with in his investigation. If he comes up with finding, maybe he'll come up with evidence that it was reverse engineered, or maybe he'll come up with evidence that there was an alien, you know, craft out there that night as well. So that's yet to be found out. So awesome story to find out about that too. And then the other one that we wanted to talk about was the Phoenix Lights. Now, the Phoenix Lights is just fascinating because Jackie and I had seen the Phoenix Lights fly over our house July in 2022. It was coming from the east, heading kind of northwest, and I could see it. And Jackie, you know, is a great debunker. I like to, you know, see things in the sky, and she might be like, "Oh yeah, babe, that's just a satellite." And I'm like, yeah, it's moving pretty funny, but, you know, Jackie really wants some evidence. So she's a tough one, tough cookie to crack sometimes. So we're out there just standing there enjoying life. And next thing you know, It's just like the cases of the Phoenix lights. People are out just standing in their backyard or, you know, relaxing in their front yard. Well, anyway, I see this formation of lights, and these lights are, the lights were very bright, and they're coming towards me. And I thought, oh, maybe it's planes or, you know, drones or something weird in the sky. And, you know, why are they flying at night? You know, and this so close to each other too. I was like, why would they be flying that close to each other? You know, planes don't really, you know, at nighttime, why would you fly in that formation? And I was like, could that be geese, you know, or something? I was like, no, that's not geese. And it's getting closer. And I mean, by then I could tell that, now I could tell it's a craft. So Jackie's just chilling on the cot with the dog. So I asked her, I say, babe, do you see, you know, there's lights in a V formation, but it's kind of blurry, and it looked like it had a cloaking device on it, and it's coming towards us, and these bright lights. And by then she turns, and I said, do you see this? And she says, I see it. And then, you know, we're watching this for a minute, and I'm like, do you see a spaceship though? And she's like, I see a spaceship. I was like, oh my God. And, you know, by then it's already passing over us, and I started thinking, oh my gosh, I need to get my phone out. And so I'd start diving for my phone, you know, trying to keep my eyes on it too. And so I finally get my phone out, and by then it's getting pretty far away. And I mean, but you could still see the lights. And I tried to record it, so I might have caught it, but I just haven't been able to see it so much on my phone. But now the Phoenix lights, I mean, over 10,000 people saw these lights hovering over Phoenix, Arizona. And then you also had Kurt Russell. He was actually flying his little Cessna plane out that night, and he saw the lights. You have a doctor that recorded it, and she has great footage and great video of it. And then you had the cover-up. You had Mayor Fife that thought it'd be a funny thing to make everybody feel crazy, and totally try to, you know, just say it was, you know, flares or a military project. And they even went after, you have to check the case, because they actually went after, I forget her name, but I think she was another mayor, but they went after her because she had wanted to find out, because she believed people. And there, I mean, 10,000 people, you know, they say it's a mass, you know, mind thing. No, they were actually saying they definitely weren't flares. Jackie and I saw this craft. I mean, it was huge. It was not small. At least 2 aircraft carriers down each side. I mean, it was freaking huge. I mean, this huge V shape, these balls, they're huge lights, like spotlights shining down on you. And there's no noise, absolutely zero noise. I mean, it was silent. Jackie and I thought if it made a noise or we felt anything, it would have been like a humming noise, like a boo kind of a noise. And that's all, you know, but we definitely felt like something. It was, you know, it was huge. It had to have been wide as well. And
Walking out the stars.
Yeah, and you could see stars through the craft, but you could see it was blurry, but you could not see the stars through the lights. The lights were so bright, you could definitely see this craft. And I mean, what kind of propulsion can make it? And it was gliding. It wasn't like hauling ass across the sky. I mean, this thing was just gliding, you know, and they were like, oh yeah, we have balloons and stuff. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's definitely not a balloon. It was huge. And yeah, in 1993 is when, oh, my bad, 1997 is when the Phoenix lights happened as well. And just, it's one of those cases, so many people saw it. Now, the question is it extraterrestrial, or is it, then again, back in, you know, reverse engineered, and they're testing this out over Phoenix? It'd be a really dumb place to do it. You know, why would you do it over a huge city instead of testing it out over, you know, like a rural area, and just fly it over them and see if they see it? What are your thoughts on the Phoenix lights?
Well, yeah, like you say. Well, first of all, Scotty and Jackie, thank you for you seeing this, the Boomerang V craft yourself. You've seen this similar craft. Like you say, it's huge. I mean, again, with the Phoenix lights, it was 1997. So we're a bit more into modern times from some of these ones we've been talking about tonight. We're still a little way away from now. I mean, from what I understand with this, again, there seems to be two different sightings. Well, many sightings, two different crafts. Or there seems to be, which they said were flares, with the red orbs, which were blinking in and out. 5 to 7 of them blinking in and out, which they said were special military flares, which I'm, after looking at the data now, I'm not convinced in that. It doesn't make any sense because they come up at certain points. They were moving, not like flares. They were blinking. And then when they disappeared, they didn't disappear in order. If a flare, they're set on time and they burn for a certain amount of time. So you send off the first one. That one there's for a few minutes, then the next one appears. They would burn out in order. They didn't. They disappeared or bled out. But also there was this huge boomerang craft that was sighted, like you say, with these huge spotlights on. The TR-3B can do a similar thing when it can kind of create like invisibility in a sense, but then you get that humming. There's the humming to it again. But like you say, why go invisible and then have the white lights on it? And this craft is huge from what I understand. You're talking, and it's huge, like you say, it's unbelievable. And different, like you've got 10,000 witnesses at least saw something. Some of them saw the red lights, the orbs coming in and out, bleeding, moving erratically, and others saw this huge craft. And some people, from their viewpoint of being directly under it, they couldn't see end to end of it. It's that big. Looking up at it and you cannot see the end of it. You know, it's terrifying. Then it would be terrifying but exciting at the same time to witness, you know. I mean, what was it? I mean, again, does ring some bells to back engineered. But like you say, when they're testing it, it depends what the agenda is, Scotty. If your agenda is to test the technology, military operation, you probably wouldn't do it there. But if it's somehow something to do with affecting the consciousness of Earth, you know, or preparing the minds and the collective consciousness, you know, we've all heard of Von Braun, what they spoke about, this false flag alien invasion, which, I mean, some probably would do. I don't think that happened now, but I believe at a point from Roswell and times like that, they've been planning this, and they understand the collective consciousness of the planet. You know, so you can affect things into the collective conscious. You can pre-program the reality for things that they want to create. You know. So maybe it's consciousness on that. But one thing we can certainly say is thousands of people saw this. There's tons of tangible video. Some of it's quite incredible. I couldn't find a video of the actual V, which I found quite disappointing, but I found a lot of the images of these orbs. But 1997, I'm guessing we wouldn't have had camera phones, would we? Very rare. I wouldn't have thought so, no. Would have had video. Would have been the old video like that, wouldn't it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they would have had, like, you know, VHS tapes and recorders.
VHS, that's what it's called. I forgot.
Yeah, that's what the doctor has. Yeah, she has some great VHS, you know, recording. She has the recordings of it as well.
Well, the V or the red lights. I've seen all the red lights. I've never found any of the V. You have to send that to me.
Yeah, and several people. I'll send you the document where they talk to the people that seen the craft leading. You know, it was from miles and miles and miles away. This craft was flying, and that's how Jackie and I saw it. We saw it flying. We don't know where it was going, but it was going somewhere. And I mean, we thought about, like, you know, we've heard about the Yael, and I don't know if you've heard of, you know, the Yael. We've heard that they might have had a V-shaped craft. Yeah, they're kind of like
breakaway civilization.
Yeah, breakaway civilization. And what were they? Very tall.
Yeah, tall.
Yeah, tall.
They are gray.
They were a form of the tall gray. So, and we've heard that they are malevolent. And but yeah, our experience with it was, you know, it was fascinating. Amazing. We were amazed.
Calm.
Yeah, we were calm. We didn't have any panic. I wasn't panicked like, oh, we're being taken over. I actually was hoping, like, pick me up because I want to talk to you. I got some questions. Walk me around inside that big ship. That is awesome. I want to go check it out. I want to know, you know,
hey, how in that thing, I reckon.
Yeah, how are you flying this thing?
And, yeah, no, I'm totally with you though. When I saw the TR-3B, when I see this thing, though at the time I 100%, you know, what else would you think it is? I was a young boy, you know, you never could, you know, it's aliens, you know, but it's consciousness activating. I wasn't scared in that sense. I was amazed by it, like, you know, just the hum and the electricity in the air, seeing this huge thing just flying across me, man. Twice I see it, you know, and it really is an incredible experience. And I suppose let's look on this a positive way to prepare the consciousness for up and coming times that these things might have happened. And I'd like to think on times ahead, we're going to have some sightings like the Phoenix Lights, I mean, in major cities. And again, when was this? This was a time, there was a meteorite shower, comet, actually, I believe. A very rare comet was coming. So many people were out anyway, were looking up to see this, you know. Perfect time to do it if you wanted to affect the consciousness. But I would feel in times to come, you know, we're going to probably experience this again. I know there is sightings at the moment, but I believe there's going to be a time where there's going to be mass sightings, you know. And I look forward to witnessing that. And of course, again, the question would be then, is that ours or is it theirs? You know? But
yeah, I look forward to seeing the V again. I go out there, and this time I have my phone damn ready. This time I ain't gonna miss it. I'm gonna capture that thing one of these nights. One of these nights, that V is gonna cross back over here, and I'm gonna catch it. I mean, I've caught some cool stuff on camera. Jackie and I've seen these orbs and so forth flying over, and a lot of them we have Mount Shasta north of us, and we see them heading towards Mount Shasta a lot. And then the other area we see them heading to a lot is over towards Mount Lassen. And it's just, you know, so many, we have a lot of things that we've seen in the sky, but, you know, to stay on topic, that'll be another ramble, because we've seen some cool stuff. But the Phoenix Lights was just, I mean, amazing, because Jackie and I, when we saw the V of lights fly over us, we hadn't heard of the Phoenix Lights. We had no clue about the Phoenix Lights yet. So I was searching everywhere to find something that was V-shaped craft. I was like, has anybody else seen this? Because I didn't know whether to report it, and Jackie was like, maybe we should. So I did. I was like, well, I'm not calling the cops. I'm definitely not calling the military, but who can I reach out to? And then I remembered, you know, Jackie and I were like, oh yeah, we'd seen that one show of MUFON. So I finally got a hold of MUFON. I called them, and an investigator had called me back, and I told him the full story, because I was like, I just want it documented, you know, same as anywhere else. What if it was, you know, not ours, and it's, you know, the Russians or something? At least it's documented that over our house, you know, this huge freaking craft. I mean, it was definitely a huge craft. It was crazy. It was just amazing. So I have my phone like ready now at night. Jackie, you know, I go out there, and, you know, it's beautiful. We love looking up at the stars, and I would love to see it again. But this time, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna record that thing, brother.
And it definitely did change our consciousness.
Yes, it definitely changed our consciousness. I'd have to definitely agree with Jay on that one. We were definitely into the paranormal. Of course, we believed in UFOs and stuff like that. But it is, you know, we definitely started diving down more the UFO and the aliens and so forth, wanting to know what kind of, you know, alien might fly that craft, because we felt like, you know, some kind of emotional, you know, ness when it flew over the top of us. I mean, it affects you when you see something like that. It just affects you. You're connected to it right away, because you're never going to forget that. Like Brett said, these stories, how would you forget the binary code, and then it comes out later? I mean, I don't forget from the moment what happened. Jackie and I sitting out there, and I could, you know, even before I saw the V of lights, bro, I'd seen this light come in, and it kind of made some weird movements. And Jackie had seen it too, and she's like, yeah, it could be a satellite. And I was like, that cannot be a satellite.
The International Space Center.
Yeah, and then she even said, oh, it could be the International Space Station, sweetheart. And I'm like, no, it came in like this, and it kind of made these kind of movements, and then stopped. And it totally stopped, and it didn't move anymore. And then it disappeared. And I was like, no, you can't see the space station like that. And then after that, it was like maybe 10 minutes after that, I'm looking over to that side, just sitting there smoking a stove, you know, looking over that way. Next thing you know, here's this V-shaped craft coming straight at us. Just amazing.
You ran into a guy that he said other people have seen.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention that, Brett. Forgot to tell you about that. I was at the store, and I was bullshitting with this guy, and the UFO topic came up. And I was like, yeah. And he had mentioned seeing some, you know, flying weird discs up by Mount Shasta when he stayed up there. And so I had asked him, about the V of lights, and he's like, oh yeah, I heard, about the V of lights. A lot of people have seen that. And I was like, what the hell? Couldn't believe it. So somebody else that was from around here said that they saw the V of lights.
Well, incredible, Scotty. And I mean, like you say, there's things like that. It changes your consciousness. It's one thing to believe and feel something in your heart, but to witness and experience something, then at that moment, it becomes a tangible reality. Though, like you say, it doesn't matter if it's ET. It was ET's flying that, or it was the back engineered, or it was the project, or it was the space program. Even if it was the space program, it still could have ETs in there. That technology was not invented by some scientists. This is back engineered from either crash retrievals or vehicles we've shot down or we've traded with or made contracts with. So this technology is mind-blowing. And to see, like you say, something of that stature, it's one thing, like you say, to see these lights in the sky, and it's probably more tangible to be extraterrestrials or beings, or kind of extraterrestrial craft or an actual being. This is nothing people don't get. A lot of these orbs aren't crafts, they're beings. It's just reality changing. And I mean, it's just, hopefully you get another go at that and you get the film of that. But, I loved it when you said with Jackie, she debunks it a bit. She's like, it could be satellite, it could be the space station. Well, our dear Jackie now, she'll be like, that's a fairy.
Yeah, she probably would be. And that light that was in the sky that night, she would have been like, oh, babe, that's one of my fairies. It's just a fairy flying around. And then, it right after, like, the next, right after it happened, we did draw, like, Jackie was like, well, let's draw what we both saw when we saw the Phoenix lights. So we both drew it, and we couldn't help it. We were like, let's make sure that we remember what the craft looked like. Well, I couldn't forget what that thing looked like ever. There's no way I could forget. And then after that, the next day, Jackie actually started getting like downloads of these poems. And so she had wrote up a couple of poems. I was like, because she was like, what do? I keep on getting like, feels like I'm getting like these poems. And I was like, you need to write them down, just write them down so you have them. And because there could be a message in that. And who knows? I mean, we don't know if, they can, flew over us for a reason to awaken us even more than we were, because having something like that happen, it's the Phoenix lights. Those people have to have the exact same feeling that we're feeling, that you're feeling, that so many other people out there are feeling. And then, we're all told that, oh, none of that stuff exists. So, I mean, that's why we decided to pick these cases to go down. And I think I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit here and there. I didn't know if you noticed that, but I'm starting to lose my breath, my voice there, bro.
You're sounding very, very white, my friend. Very sexy.
I know I got a deep voice today, guys.
It's still do, Bobby, though, everybody. There's no problem. Don't worry. If I saw a UFO, I'd probably shit my pants. How'd me know what happened? And it'd be okay because I'm a little boy.
Yeah, everybody. It was a lot of fun. I figured we'd start our wrap up. And, we wanted to talk about these topics because, when a lot of people out there have these experiences and are afraid to talk about it even. And, we wanted to also, on a side thing here, we wanted to give a shout out to Polly Rodeman. She's over in Israel, and we just wanted to send blessings and protection over you. So, hey, Ramblers out there, if you all could just send protection over her and her family and her loved ones. We all know what's going on over there. Horrible, very horrible. I do hope that the U.S. steps in, maybe even the UK. Somebody step in and help them. I know it's more than that. There's a lot of political stuff, but we just want to send you love, Polly, and sending you major love from the round table. So take care, Polly. And Brett, you think we're almost done? How about you, Jackie?
Yeah,
well, first of all, I've got to send Polly some protection and light, and we need to, as a civilization. We need to get past this division and tribal nature, and we need to move forward as a civilization, because the stuff that we are as conscious beings are waiting for, this transformation on Earth, can't happen until this change occurs, and it will occur eventually. So I'm just sending out positive and loving vibes to you, protection, light, and love. And you know, stay positive, and you know, let's just keep pushing out the prayers, because prayers do have power, you know. And let's pray. Let's not pray for winning or domination or one side to win. Let's just pray for peace, love, and harmony, you know. Yeah, I think it's a good place to wrap it up. I've really enjoyed it, guys. Thank you for everyone. I think Jackie's got something, has she?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say hello to some special people that I've been talking to lately, and they've been helping me out. Rosie, Amber, Haley, Louise, Tara, Shmara, you know I'm talking about you. They support us so much, and I love you gals so much. So I love you, Ramblers. And hi, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, hi, Mom and Dad. Hi, Emma. Hi, girls. Hi, everybody. Sending much love out to everybody. What's up, Mom? And yeah, hey, Ramblers. We just wanted to tell you, all of you are special, and we appreciate you all so much. And thank you so much for joining us at the round table and joining us on our Facebook group. I mean, you guys make us feel really special every day, knowing that we have so many people seated at the round table with us. We started off with, you know, just an idea of, you know, the three of us wanting to do something fun and be able to talk to you guys, and, you know, have a safe place for you guys to sit down with us and bullshit, and, you know, your thoughts and everything are welcome. It's a place where we all can, you know, get our soul family together, everybody. So sending much love and hearts up to everybody.
Hearts up.
Hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Keep shining.
You good, brother? All right, good. All right, everybody. We're out. Take care. Keep shining. Bam, we did it.